Today, the conservative majority on the Supreme Court cleared the way for the Trump administration to potentially deport more than 1 million people, most of whom just happen to be not white. For years now, Trump and his Stephen Miller friend have been trying to get rid of what is called temporary protective status, or TPS for short. That's a program created by Congress decades ago to provide legal immigration status to people from countries impacted by wars and natural disasters. A program, quite frankly, folks, that happens to have allowed the migration and immigration of lots of non-white people into this country. For years, Trump has been pretty damn open about why he wants to get rid of TPS. He said a lot of really horrible and really racist things about all of it. But today, in the conservative majority's opinion on the matter, Justice Samuel Alito had the gall to write that race wasn't a factor here because none of the statements made by the president on this issue were overtly racist. Now, in her dissent, Justice Elena Kagan called BS on that. She cited statement after statement on this issue from Donald Trump, using his words. And while I could read those to you, I think it's best you hear them from the horse's mouth.
Take a look at what's happening in Haiti, a tremendous problem with AIDS. Many of those people will probably have AIDS, and they're coming into our country.
They're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats.
I've also announced a permanent pause on third world migration, including from hellholes like Afghanistan, Haiti, Somalia, and many other countries. I didn't say shithole, you did. We had a meeting, and I said, why is it we only take people from shithole countries, right? Why can't we have some people from Norway, Sweden, just a few? Let us have a few. From Denmark, do you mind sending us a few people? Send us some nice people, do you mind? But we always take people from Somalia.
Just let that sit for you just a moment there. Joining me now is Kristen Clarke, General Counsel for the NAACP and the former Assistant Attorney General in charge of the Justice Department's Civil Rights Division. Kristen, there's a lot that I have thought about this, and going back to when those original comments were being made by the president and how this was an ongoing narrative of how the president viewed people of color, not only in this country, but those who want to come here, because where they are is dangerous for them. Where they are is not the opportunities that we have here. And they're seeking help. They're seeking asylum. Help us understand legally why it matters that Trump's motives here are clearly racist.
Yeah. Well, I was in the courtroom today when the Supreme Court issued this devastating decision, which has tremendous impact on the lives of hundreds of thousands of lawfully abiding Haitian nationals who pay taxes, who work, who are disproportionately represented in the healthcare industry in our country, who now fear, face potential deportation. What's deeply troubling about the Supreme Court's ruling here, authored by Justice Alito, is that the court is turning a blind eye to ugly, vile, stark racial discrimination, which runs contrary to the 14th Amendment of our Constitution. We're dealing with the fallout from the Supreme Court's decision in the Calais ruling that eviscerated the Voting Rights Act, but now we see the court really hollowing out the Reconstruction Amendments, hollowing out the 14th Amendment, unwilling to call it for what it is, ugly, intentional racial discrimination that should have no place in American democracy. It runs so contrary to our values.
I mean, that's an important note. I mean, look, we all know how this all came together from the beginning. I mean, you and I weren't written into those words, but we own those words today, we the people, right? The Constitution applies to us, even though parts of it weren't even written for us to give us the power that we have today. What do you make of this ruling in the context of other major Supreme Court rulings, like the one from April that limits the use of race in redistricting, for example? And I'll just to pull the lens back a little bit further, put my cards here on the table. I liken Alito's opinion today to that of Justice Taney, the Dred Scott decision, in which it was decided that black people, even those who were freed, were not citizens. And here we are now looking at the world and saying, again, people of colors seeking asylum, right? Even those who have already received it are not welcome here.
Yeah. This is a dark chapter in the American story, and today it stands another stained page in the story. I am deeply concerned about the fate of Haitian nationals and so many other folks in our country who face deportation, and now is the time to act. Now is the time for Congress. Congress can correct this. Congress can course correct by passing legislation now.
And can I emphasize on that point real quick? Because you're talking about 1.3 million people potentially being deported.
That's right.
As a result of this.
That's right. And families that have been here for years, children whose lives are disrupted. Congress can act, but it's also a time for Americans to act. We need folks to vote this election cycle, but another part of the conversation needs to be about the need for Supreme Court reform. We need to be talking about ethics reform. We need to be putting an end to the shadow docket. We need term limits. We need to figure out a way to reinvigorate our nation's highest court, whose rulings have become incredibly predictable. We've seen more 6-3 rulings this term than we have seen previously. And so Supreme Court reform has to be a part of this conversation.
You touched on something just now, and it made me, just in that moment, think about how this resonates with the American people. You know, because I'm thinking back to a lot of the immigration conversation and the predominant attitude that was conveyed, even though I don't think it was one that was predominantly held, was that, oh, yeah, we need to get rid of all these people, right? All these people who violated the law shouldn't be here. And then when Donald Trump started locking up grandmas and babies, and everybody was like, what's he doing? What? They slept through the part where he said that he was going to do the thing that they're watching him do. This feels a little bit like that, where because it's largely a community of people that folks don't have a lot of time with or have, connection to, they're somewhat not connected to what something like this means. Can you put in terms from your legal work and the cases you've handled, what this really means, what this could start to look like in this country? Because if it starts with folks from Somalia.
Yeah, it's a recipe for chaos and discord, and it's coming to your community if it hasn't already. This administration has shut down the refugee program, with one exception. They've opened the door widely for white South
Oh, yeah, they get
Afrikaners.
iPads now when they show up.
Yeah, but what are we talking about? A law, ICE now breaking down doors, entering homes and schools and workplaces to strip away hundreds of thousands of people who are in this country, doing the right thing. Paying their taxes, working in the healthcare industry, and more. And it's also important that we thread the needle with other things that are happening right now. We have a Voting Rights Act that has been eviscerated. They're seeking to strip us of voice. They're seeking to strip Black people from this country. They're seeking to erase our stories. Now is a moment where everyone should be outraged. Everyone should be focused on voting this midterm election cycle, despite the obstacles that this administration is determined to put in our path. And we need to, at the end of the day, really figure out how we get our Supreme Court back on track. We need our nation's highest court to be an institution that is committed to fairness and interpreting the law and the Constitution in an even way. And it doesn't feel like that right now.
Well, You know the 14th Amendment is next, right? We know that. Kristen Clarke, as always, thank you so much. Really appreciate you.